Hello, hello, and welcome to the Rise of the Womb Oracle Summit. I am your host, Athena Sai. I am an oracle and a wisdom keeper for the Blue Rose lineage. And I am honored today to have Shannon Van Den Berg with us. I like to call her a sacred storyteller, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce her and the magical work that she does. So Shannon is the CEO of Kiva Publishing, international best-selling author and publisher, and feminine leadership pioneer for over 2 decades. She activates new earth feminine leaders into their next level embodiment and expression through blazing the trail for the sacred art of the golden age feminine leadership. She holds space for her sisters to rise through her powerful collaborative books, Activation Portals, Quantum Creatrix Oracle Deck, and revolutionary Jaguar Leadership Council. She lives in her homestead in the Sacred Four Corners area of Hesperus, Colorado, with her husband and 4 homeschooled boys. So welcome, Shannon. How are you?
I'm amazing. Thank you for having me, Athena.
Yes.
So excited to be here with you.
I am too. And how we met was actually through the Sovereign book. And I think I joined the Magdalene Codes. That was your first Magdalene book. The Magdalene Codes, I joined that from other people that I had known. And so I joined that summit and was able to listen to all these amazing women from all around the world share their stories. And then you had put out The Sovereign as well as Jaguar Medicine. And I jumped and I was a co-author in that experience. And I want to say that as I joined that, I was in a really tumultuous time. I was leaving a relationship, a marriage of 15 years and becoming a single mom and figuring out who I was. And it was actually scary, but I want to say the way that you held space, even though I couldn't get on every single live call with everybody, but watching the replays and just the way that you hold space really felt safe and comfortable to me, which was a big thing for me as I've been transitioning over these last couple of years. So I just knew that I wanted you to be part of this because you carry that desire, and it's like you have those codes to activate people to share their story, even through the hardships and the struggles. That's where the medicine really is. So I think the first question I want to really ask you is, when did you first really hear the call of what I would like to call the storyteller or that priestess of words? When did you first hear that call and make that shift in your life?
Long before most people know that it actually happened, because I was really little. I started reading when I was about 2.5. And I was obsessed with books. I portaled into them and used a lot of my natural abilities that were freaking out my grandparents that raised me. They were like, "How do you know all this about World War II?" And I'm like, "Well, I read a novel." And they're like, "No." But that was just me. And it was so natural to portal into books. And I began to feel their magic. And I tell a story a lot because it's so relevant to how we get detached from what we know. And I think that really correlates to the womb oracle. In that, I was laying on the floor of my grandpa's office when I was 4 years old. And he said, "So, Shannon," in his 1950s-ish tone that he always used, they're very linear and very you are a doctor or lawyer and college and blah, blah, blah. And he said, "So what do you want to be?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to be a writer." And I couldn't even say writer well, because I was little. And he says, "Oh, no. That's like being an artist or an actress. That's that's fluffy. You can't do that." And I was like, luckily, I'm quite the disruptor. And I was like, "Okay, we'll fuel that fire." Even then, but I see so many women that are that experience the similar things and just go, "Oh, okay." Or their writing isn't received, or it's not, worthy of somebody's opinion. But for me, it was just one thing after the other. School was a boring thing. That's why I homeschool. But I was published. I went into journalism and history and in college. And all the way through, I was writing for poetry and publications. I've been in over 70 magazines. By the time I started to have children, then I've been in, I don't know, I stopped counting after that. And so when I first got the call to join a book, a collaborative book that was my business coach had, I was like, okay. And then I felt the power of it, the power of literally like not just writing an article for a magazine, not just writing poetry and, being in the natural expression, but when there's a deadline, when there's other women involved, when there's an archetype involved. And it just like upped the game for me. And so I started my publishing company and now I have 6 collaborative books out.
And what an amazing journey. I love that and I'm finding that with the people that I'm interviewing for this, they carry that disruptor. They're like, no, like you can tell me no all you want, but I'm going to do it anyway. So thank you for saying yes to that, because you really have opened up the pathway for so many people. Because I was one who was like, I'm never going to write a book. Like my mom wanted to write a book. Like I always remember her talking about that. My sister said she wanted to write a book. And then here I am all of a sudden, like stumbles in my lap. And it is such an activation process, and like the power behind it of, the deadline, yes, and having so many words, but also like, I think it almost like opens the pathway for us to truly like step into that energy and just share our heart and share what is really happening on the earth. But also the women, it feels like the women who are joining, they have these wisdom teachings. They've endured so much, both their struggles and their triumphs, and they're sharing so much of that. And I love it. It's so powerful. So when you think about the storyteller archetype, what is that? Like, what is that really to you? What does that feel like to you?
Well, I don't honestly think about that too much because I believe everybody are storytellers. I believe everybody has that archetype within them. I think it's, again, like we're kind of raised, especially as women, to kind of hush our voice and, censor ourselves and not be too much and all the things that we're so lovingly taught. But for me, the storyteller is leadership. It's so intricately entwined because every story, every experience that we have, I see as a contribution to the world, because somebody somewhere is waiting to know that somebody lived through what they're trying to live through, or, they're waiting to catapult past, the 10 stages that we went through, and get to their soul mission work faster, or whatever it is that they're working on. And so the storyteller really is the one who is courageous and is very heart-centered and is that like natural leader. And I have a whole different like idea of leadership than most people, because I think as moms, we're leaders. I think, we lead in partnerships in a certain way. Of course, our partners also lead in a certain way. We lead our families, we lead our communities. I mean, it just, ripples out from us. So I think like as women, and especially moms, we like hold that space as leaders. So whatever it is, and we also lead ourselves, right? I mean, all conscious, spiritual entrepreneurs at some point have to lead themselves. So that's where the storyteller becomes the leader. And that's why my work is so intertwined with leadership, because to me, they're the same thing. Normally people that have a story and hold it inside, like they haven't reached that point where they can express it, where they have that courage. And sometimes it literally takes being in a book with other women. That's one of the favorite things that I love watching in my containers is how like one woman will be like, oh, I don't know if I can share this, but what do you think about sharing it? And they'll come and, a lot of people call me a story shaman because I've been a shaman for so long as well. And, they'll talk to me about it, but it's the other women supporting them. And then the next woman goes, oh, well, she shared that and she lived through it. Like that safety kicks in and they're like, I think I can do this. And it just goes through the entire book to where all of a sudden, all the stories get deeper. All the women are called in, to step into their leadership. So I'm not sure if that was the answer you were looking for, but the story archetype is so much about leading to me. And even in, indigenous cultures, you see this. The storytellers were often the shaman of the communities. They were the wisdom keepers, held the stories. And that's actually why my publishing company is called Kiva Publishing, because we live in the Southwest here where we have like holes built into the ground by the indigenous tribes here. And they were for storytelling and healing and, working through conflict and all those things. It was like being in the womb of the earth. They actually covered them and stuff. And so that's why I named my publishing company that.
That is amazing. I did not know that. So I love that because what a perfect way to gather, literally, like you said, in the womb, like in the earth. Like, yes, that's gotta be so activating. So you mentioned a lot about, this it's like this creation process that happens. And like you said, like one woman is like becoming empowered because she hears of the story of another. And so when you think about that, how do you feel like that translates into their life and, loving themselves and even into their business? Like as they kind of go through that and they start activating that storyteller, they start to be like you said, the safety to actually share. Like, how do you feel like that translates into the rest of their life?
Well, it's funny because when you were talking about how we met and, the tumultuous time you're going through, I always giggled to myself because so many women that come into my containers are in that flux. I believe in Magdalene Rising, my first book, I think on one of our calls, like 15 of the 29 women were literally moving, some of them moving to other countries, moving across, the US. It tends to be that thing when you're even writing, even saying yes, honestly, to being part of a book. I felt it. So many other, most of the women that come into my containers will tell me like everything felt like it was like up in the air or something, like everything lightened the second I said yes. But when we write our story, we also release a lot. We go back and we can re-story, and we're not just going, oh, I think I'm going to write about this. I mean, this is like really sacred storytelling, like you said, where we're going back and we're saying like, I am a divine channel. What stories need to come through me right now? Like what? And that's actually how I choose the books. I choose my books. Priestess of Lemuria is the last one. And everybody's like, Priestess of Lemuria? And I was like, that's what was needed, because I literally go and I ask, what is the energy that I can infuse on the planet that's most needed right now? And I will get, oh, Lemuria, or Magdalene, twice already. And so when we go and we engage in these containers, we release all this energy, we can go back and look at our stories from the past, and with the consciousness we have now, it just releases this energy. And so many women have this huge surge of energy, not just from saying yes, but then from actually writing, doing pre-writing. That's a thing. I think I wrote my first chapter for a book like 10 times. But yeah, so like it really infuses your life and business with so much energy. And then you get to direct where that energy goes, of course. And I see this as we stumble through releases sometimes where people are like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? Like I wasn't prepared for this. And I'm like, I told you people would click on your links. Like you have to like be prepared. You have the channels open, because it's so fun. Like, it's like, I love to surf. And it's like surfing, like you don't get on a wave and then like go, oh, wait, I don't want to be on the wave. You like go along for the ride, And so that's the magic, and then that energy, of being received. with your chapter, with your work, with just being an author. Like, people view you differently, and that changes who you are, your identity, who you see yourself as, what you believe is possible. I mean, I have authors that are like getting talked to by Netflix, who are getting TED Talks without the application. I have an author that's on a billboard that's coming out in like 3 days, in New York City, nonetheless. We were talking about like how big to make her QR code on the poster. And I'm like, I don't know this. I've never done this, but it's so fun to watch like how that energy just like infuses everything, even your families. My kids will tell you firsthand, and I have like adult boys and then I have a 6-year-old, and they'll tell you firsthand, like, wow, like that's different. And they're all entrepreneur. My older boys are all entrepreneurs. So they all have that, leadership and put themselves forward, but they know, like, they tell stories. They seek out stories. A lot of our family conversations are stories. And I believe it's because I'm always telling stories and modeling for that. And so it changes everything in our lives and business, I would say. That's a generalization.
Yeah, and I'll attest to that too, because yeah, it really did. And just even saying, oh, by the way, I'm an international best-selling author 2 times. Like, people do, their eyes light up, but it is such an activation. Like, I remember when I said yes, like you said, everything started to line up for me. And then I had to really sit with the process. And so the first book I really wrote about the hardships of things. And then the second book that I was in with you, I actually wrote about my lifetimes in Lemuria. So I love that. So let's dive in a little bit, because I kind of want to bring up the water priestess, because of course, when we talk about the womb, we think about that primordial waters of all life, right? And so let's first talk a little bit about, when you hear the term womb oracle, what does that stir within you?
So that's an interesting one, because I was thinking about that with the name of the summit, and I was like, it's not something that I actually like. I guess I embody it, and like, it's such a facet of my life. I never like actually use the term or anything. But it's really that kind of liminal space to me, which is really connected for me to my heart, the way that I embody it. The heart and womb connection, where we just know. It's just that like universal knowingness of rightness. Of course, I wrote a chapter for Priestess of Lemuria. It's my first chapter in one of my books. And that's what my chapter was about, was that connection to the waters and our womb and our heart, and how that has changed Lemurian civilization. That was what it was all about. And the rightness of things that came from those embodiments. So it's that liminal space to me is what I always think, where everything is accessible. As they say, I studied Hawaiian shamanism since my trip last year. And they talk about how when we're connected in our womb, that everything is quantum. Like, the feminine in Hawaiian shamanism is absolutely quantum. It's infinite possibilities, infinite connections. And so that's really what the womb oracle means to me, which then, can bring forth whether it's stories, it's wisdom, like reaching back into Lemurian. It was so interesting in this book, because we had women coming to calls with me saying, I don't know that this energy is on the planet right now. And I'm like, fucking cool. Like, bring it on. Like, it's coming back, because that's accessible through that womb oracle space that we all embody. So that's where I see like the codes for the golden age coming through. They're not coming through our minds or our hypermasculine, which we all love to, diversion to once in a while. They're really coming from that liminal space, that quantum space that we all have access to.
Yeah. And I always think of it like, as you say, quantum, it's like the umbilical cord that reaches both to the womb of Gaia and through our own lineage of our mother's line, and as well as to the galactic or the cosmic womb. And so I absolutely feel that and felt that as you were speaking it. So why do you feel like this is on the rise right now? I mean, it has been for years, but more and more people, let's say it's coming a little bit more mainstream. Like, we're talking about Lemuria, we're remembering this. Why do you feel like it's coming up so strongly these days?
Well, one, the feminine's on the rise and has been, which is so fascinating to me in lots of ways, because having four boys and, a husband, I'm always like, I'm definitely here to also help the men. And like, I feel that we do this for our brothers and stuff as well. So it's odd to me in one way that we're like, the feminine is rising, but like the masculine have to come so that they can also support us in that. But I do feel it's all about that rising where, like in Lemuria, there was that balance of the masculine and the feminine, and not just the masculine and the feminine, the true masculine and feminine, where toxicity was very low. And, there was the expression of it all. I love also, like in Hawaiian shamanism, the heart center is the ohani is masculine in their culture. I think it's so fascinating. The womb is feminine, the heart is masculine. And I love that because, men being hero and all, but I do think that that's why, just that's what has to happen, that balance, that dynamic balance. I don't believe in like perfect true balance, but that dynamic balance has to return to where life is respected. Like there's some really basic tenets of what society has failed to remember and, let things get so off kilter to me. So I think that's why it's coming back.
Yeah, I feel that too. Just the need to be in right relationship to the elements and to, the earth and the stars. And I love that you said the heart as the masculine, because I think of, the heart as like that Leo energy, which we'll be coming into, right? Here in a few weeks, we'll be shifting from Cancer season to Leo. And that's like that courageous heart, like that bravery, that strength, and that courage to do the right thing, to lead by example. And as we talk about that feminine rising, like if we even look back to ancient traditions of like the Hathor, like when she was the great grandmother of civilization, she raised the healed masculine through her sensuality and her connection and all the aspects that she held, sky goddess, cow goddess, mother, like all of these aspects she held. She was able to raise that enlightened and healed masculine for a better world. And I think that's really, kind of what you were saying too, is like, we need both. We need both. And so as we're waking up, we're maybe able to hold the space more for the masculine to join us. So, I just have one son, but I can feel that within me as a mother, like, oh yeah, like we got to move away from maybe the way that, like, so how I was raised, moving away from some of those things into more healthy dynamics and better boundaries and things like that. And I feel like we are those change makers to start to raise that more healed civilization.
Well, and there's lots of places to me. I've been working on this big time. It's like we had our first three boys a year apart each. And that was a lot for me. Never really having been around infants, I really had to lean into, those lineages beyond my immediate family, because I was not raised by my mother. My grandparents were much older at that point. And so I had to lean into the matriarchs in my lines that I didn't know, that I had to, connect with through spirit and my own intuition to mother. And it took a lot, because my husband's family is very, they're seventh generation ranchers and they believe in one thing. And I was like, no, I always feel this is the way. But there's so many things that we have to learn as women from men. And that space holding for us that only men can provide. I was just part of a summit a couple months ago that had men holding space. They didn't talk on the summit, anything, but they held space for the ceremonies that were happening with the groups of women that would come on together. And it was so fascinating because it felt so different. And then like for me, just recently, one of my shamanic mentor that I work with in Maui, he literally one day is like, I got this telepathic method, you need ocean water. And I'm like an ocean goddess. So it's a thing. And we were trying to go back to Kauai and didn't get to, and all these things. So I've been missing the ocean a lot. And he literally like went and got me a bottle of ocean water, a big bottle of ocean water, and sent it to me. And just knowing that he did it was one thing, but like receiving that, like wrapped in beautiful ferns and everything that he did, because I'm learning fern medicine with him, was like my inner hero was like, that's it. That's that inner hero, that it's not the storytell hero we see, in Disney movies. That's the true hero that says, oh, you need this? Sure, here you go. And there's no strings attached. There's no, anything. And for me, like having taken on more of a masculine role, as my husband and I own businesses all since my older boys were, before they were born. And I had to take on so much of that masculine role. I was like, oh, I can chill now. I can come back in. And when we do that, we can actually like have that, connection with our womb oracle and lean into that more deeply. So I think that's a big part for me too, is like that receiving, from the masculine, whether it's modeling for our own inner masculine, since there's not a whole lot of that in our world, in my estimation. But then also like teaching like our boys, like you said, how to be raised in a way that isn't against women, but isn't like, in the whole like kind of off-kilter feminist thing either, because I see that happening a lot too in our world. And I'm like, oh, that's a little out balance. So it's interesting to watch my older boys, especially like how they navigate things, how they, like my oldest is choosing not to have a bachelor party. And it was highly unpopular with some of his friends because he's getting married at the end of the month. And I was like, that's outdated. He's been with his girl. He's known her since he was like 2. They've been living together for 4 years. I'm like, yeah, trailblaze that, buddy.
Yeah, it's like finding the traditions that are no longer resonant, like you said, it's outdated. Like he's not resonating with that, and having, being able to say no, like that's not what I want, even though he's, getting maybe some backlash from friends. So I think that's amazing. Like, and that's exactly it. It's those setting those boundaries and knowing what they want and not being afraid to go for it. So that's amazing. That's a great, like real life story. Like that's really happening. That's amazing. So let's talk a little bit more, because you're talking about the water, and I want to dive into this because the water priestess has been coming up a lot for me over the last probably like year and a half, especially. So what is the water priestess for you?
Well, first of all, I'm very elemental, but even I have been called back to the waters. I was raised by the ocean, Southern California, and for reasons of the city stuff that I'm just not huge on, I chose to go inland and then married my husband, stayed. And I had all these opportunities to go to Hawaii. I mean, probably like 20-ish over the years. And it was one thing or another thing, and they were free trips and they were winning things. And there was that part of me that was always like, no. Like I have responsibilities. I'm a key, I'm a steward of the land here. We have 4 sacred sites around us. Like we're literally our ranch is in the crosshairs of 4 sacred sites within an hour of us. And so I was like, no, and so last year when my 3rd oldest turned 21, he's like, I want to go to a beach. And I was like, okay, time to go to Kauai. And I had this huge homecoming when like literally we're getting ready to land in Lahui and the clouds parted. It was like a movie. Like we'd been cloud covered the entire time over the ocean, and the clouds parted. I saw the ocean. I was like, oh damn, this is a whole different level happening. Um, because I think so many of us are being called back to the waters, even those of us who are really elemental, like in general. And I've always been a water priestess. I mean, that's probably my first element. Fire being my second one, which is interesting. Since they're kind of conflicting, I've had that mentioned to me quite a few times. I'm like, that's my disruptor. But that water is that inorganic thing that has been, it never goes away. And so it's our connection to everything. It holds frequency. It's kind of like energy, like it just changes form again and again and again. And I've always been obsessed with the magic, the alchemy of water. And so for me lately, like being a water priestess is that deep sense of homecoming to the mother civilizations like Atlantis and Lemuria, where water was, I have many lifetime memories of like temples built in water, so that the frequency could spread through the water, so that the Nai and the Kohala, the dolphins, the whales could assist us through, their star lineages and all that. And so to me, being a water priestess is like the highest level of stewardship, because water, touches every other element, and is that thing that doesn't ever, it just shifts and changes. So that's the big one for me. And again, like the water thing is so heart related to me. Our frequency of our body, like our heart intelligence, it very much controls the frequency of our body. And I think that's why people say heartbreak and those type things, because it's affecting our entire being. People can die of heartbreak because the frequency infuses the waters of your body, and there you go. But yeah, so I do tons of ritual work with water. My 6-year-old and I actually paddleboard every single morning for many hours and do ceremonies and take things from the garden. I'm also an avid gardener and things. And so it's so ceremonial to me as well. Like I have waters from, some people have rock collections or sand collections. I have water collections because we have so many rivers here. We live at the base of the Rocky Mountains, so we have so many rivers. So when we go to river, I collect water and I literally make, protection potions and things with different kinds of waters. And, that translates to the waters of our body, the waters, the blood of our womb. So it's the most connected element to me.
I just love that. You're right. Like I hear people, because I like go and I collect rocks from places I visit. Like that's just my thing. But water, that's so amazing. And yeah, like I always think of the water as so deeply connected to our emotional state too. And I feel like maybe it's even coming up now in our consciousness more and more, because we are becoming masters of our emotions in a way, right? I mean, there's still a lot of healing that we're doing, but I feel like something's starting to click and more of us are starting to realize the power of our emotions and the power of water, and how like it really can ripple out, right, and spread through like you said, every other element. So that's amazing. And the other thing that you said that I really liked was your balance between fire and water. And that's something, a quest that I've been on multiple times, where I'm always balancing the fire and the water. And that's the true alchemy, right? That's like literally the fire will boil and help the water turn to steam. And so it is that alchemization of the emotions and the fire and how it's moving together. So you're one of those people that are here to help people step over that threshold. You're here to help people with the transformations of their life, through the work that you do, whether it be, the portal groups that you're doing, or the books, or the card decks. Like, those are all a way that you're helping people transition. And so that makes sense that you carry both of those, because that's part of that code that you carry.
Well, and I love storm energy. It's not, a full element for most people, but there's so much magic in storm medicine, which is also fire and water. Mainly to me, in that it frees us from so much. It makes everything looser, limber, like able to change, able to transform. And so many people are like kind of stuck on the idea, like, I'm this element. I think it's like from astrology and lots of things, we begin to believe like, I am this element. And I've always looked at it like seasons, like I am embodying, if it's summertime and I need a day, I might go use my yoni steam. It's a winter one, so that I've made so that I can really connect into the rest, and the replenishment of winter. And that's how I see elements, is they're being very, we can embody all of them, but definitely having, the alchemy between how we use them is a really big piece. And that the water priestess thing is, I see so many people called home to that, because also I think people kind of, in the whole like Earth Day, like back to the earth type movement, people like are starting to kind of, I don't know, like lesser prioritize water in a way. I've seen this whole thing where like, in women's circles, women are like, oh, I'm fire. And I'm like, are you? I'm like, come closer, let me see. Because I have that tendency to be able to, burn people if, burn them out a little bit if, they're not. And so it's always that thing. And I love how we all can work together. Like certain like calls that I do, I'm actually getting ready to do a program called Coming Home Soon. And it's going to be really watery. It's talking about coming home to the waters and the water priestess and our emotions and our roots, but more through the water and the womb instead of the earth. And when I see that, I know that I'm going to call in all of these women. All the calls are going to be very water oriented. But I love that we can move between them and gain the wisdom. It's also interconnected.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. It's like not forgetting about all the elements that we are, because we are those elements. They're within our body, and remembering that and bringing more people to that awareness. And I just think that's so powerful. So let me know when that comes out. So let's see, what other question do I have? We kind of already spoke about this one. What do you feel is the connection between the heart and womb? And I think you kind of said that, but is there anything else that you would like to specify about that specific connection for you?
Working, I've been herbalist for almost 30 years now, Western trained, but I started into Hawaiian shamanism and therefore Hawaiian plants, ferns in particular. And ferns, it's so interesting because the Hawaiian people see ferns, each fern correlates with an emotion. So it's like very deep emotional work that is almost plant medicine, like Aya level stuff to me. It's very, very deep. But for me, like that important thing is, if we are disconnected, heart and womb, then we lose that inner hero, that courage, that liminal space, because both our heart and our womb, embody that, then we lose. That's where I see women who are like really soft and flowy, and they have they can't step forward. I had over 60 women want to be in Magdalene Codes, my last Magdalene book. And they were deep, like powerful as fuck, like womb healers. But they were missing that heart piece, within them. I'm not like judging or anything, but I could see like there wasn't that masculine structure, that piece where they said, oh, fuck yeah, I'm going to do this. I don't know what I'm going to write about. I'm just going to go, and I'll let, the structure of the program and all the things like hold me, and I will move in. And so I think that's like where we really get disconnected from our leadership and our own inner compass, where we just have the knowing when we're raising our kids or schooling our kids or, moving through our business. And I think that's where so many women are thrown off right now with the changes in our industry in the last year and a half or so, is they're doing it all mentally. It's all what they're taught. It's all the systems, they know, or the coach's system that they're working with, instead of knowing themselves and having that connection where they're like, this is me, right? This is me. I'm going to be brave and step forward. And if I need support, I'm going to go find some other, sisters that will do this with me, but this is what I'm doing. And so I think that's like a huge thing with feminine leadership, feminine storytelling, feminine entrepreneurship, is when we have a disconnect there, that it throws us off because we have one aspect of ourselves, but not the other that is needed to move effectively and do what we came here to do.
Oh, such a beautiful, beautiful message right there. I mean, that's just, yeah, so empowering. And you are right, and I am one of those people who, as I'm going through all this stuff, it's like finding out who I am again. And it's been such a wild ride, but I love that you said, that heart and womb connection, and it's like also like it just being able to drop in, like you said, and trusting in the systems that are there, trusting in the structure, trusting in yourself and the magic that you have. And yeah, it's not about the mental game anymore. Yes, balancing that mind and body, but ultimately really trusting, us as oracles, trusting that inner gnosis, trusting that what is for us is ours. And so I'm really glad that you said that. That's a really great answer.
Well, and our mind takes us out of our bodies. Our heart and our womb take us into our bodies, and our body has its own intelligence, and we're leaving that out too. Like there's so much to me that's around this that I see, like why, women are looking around going, well, that person's doing like nothing, and they're just like selling like crazy. And I'm like, well, that woman's in her body going at her own pace. This has been such a hard lesson for me, having 4 boys and the ranch and multiple businesses and the publishing company, is to actually like find what my pace is. What is my pace? Who sets my pace? If I have to bow out of, a certain business coach's thing because it's faster than I'm going or slower than I'm going, then so be it. If I hire somebody that doesn't make any sense, that there is sense if I have the knowing to do so. And there's always a reason, I found, even if it seems super random or like I don't even like how the woman is, I'm always like, that was why at some point I had to learn that from that person. And I very much learned through attunement. And this is also where I think our learning is going, is that attunement. So those women that are in their bodies and their heart and womb is connected and they're just rooted in themselves, they're able to attune other people. So that's where, like, when women come on creation circles, I have so many authors who are like, okay, I love you all, but I have to go write. And it's because they get the attunement of all their sisters and me while we're on a call, and they're feeling that like inspiration, which is source, right? That source coming in, they're being sourced, and they're like, wow, this has to come out of me now. And they're so excited about it. And I love seeing it because I'm always like, okay, bye. I know exactly what you're doing. But I think that's a huge issue. And then like, how are we holding that for our kids? Right? If we're not doing that, if we're letting our mental, perpetuation go, our kids are doing the same thing. Whereas like my 6-year-old, we're out paddleboarding today, and his little friend that we were with kind of had a breakdown because there were some waves. And my son looks and says, we're safe. he's like, you just have to tap, just come into your body. And he just starts tapping. I mean, he doesn't do like the whole EFT pattern or anything. He just taps on his body and he's like, we're safe. We're all good. We're not dying. And it's such like a good reminder because like we get so up in our heads and so far away from what we're supposed to be doing, what our inner knowing is telling us, that we just override it. And then we wonder how I've done stuff in the past, like where I would take on huge, like year-long containers with like 50 women. And I'd get in the middle of it and be like, yeah, how am I going to do this? And it was because I just overrode everything. And then we're in a place that we have to figure out, okay, so how do we get back? Right? How do we go back to that remembering? How do we go back to that connection? I really, truly think that attunement of the water, because you can speak. That's one of the things I shared in my priestess chapter was the attunement of the water. I do it every single day with everything I drink, whether it's cacao or herbal tea or just water. I always speak intentions and blessings into the water, not only for myself, my own waters in my body, but I speak them for the waters of the planet, for the waters of our galaxy, and for the waters of my star lineage. So, letting that be felt and sharing our attunement.
Oh, I love that. And, yes, blessing of the waters is something that I don't practice all the time, but when I do it, it's like, I feel that instantly. It's just that opening of gratitude and love, and allowing it to enter into the body and move out from there is so powerful. And something else you were saying, about us, like we have to go back, and it's almost like we have to build this trust within ourselves because we've disassociated or we put too much on our plate. I'm guilty of that. I'm a projector in human design. And I have the channels that actually need naps. So I actually have to really honor my energy. I'm not one that can produce a lot, and I will put stuff out there. And I've had big containers that were like, 6 months, and I'm like, that doesn't serve me. And so I learned through that journey of offering these larger containers, and I had to really start to trust myself that, okay, I can switch. I can change something that's going to fit. I can also tune into what season I am and where am I really at right now, and how much capacity can I hold right now with, like you said, you just launched your book, you have a wedding coming up, you have all this stuff going on. And so you're also like, we have to kind of adjust and know that that's okay. And it's not just one way, and every person's unique in what capacity they're at from moment to moment, day to day, and just to really trust ourselves. And I think asking ourselves, asking our bodies, like, what is it that we really need on a day-to-day basis and moment to moment, even, especially with all these solar flares energies that we've been getting this year.
Solstice.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh yeah. Dream time, everything's just activated. And so we really need to slow down and know that, again, when we're putting it all out there and doing all these things, and, that's more probably in the mind than really in the body. So making sure that we're all pausing and connecting to the heart, connecting to the womb, connecting to, even our third eye and that wisdom that we hold, and really trusting, where we're at and how best to navigate it.
Yeah. One of my biggest practices I've done for about a year now, which has really brought me into my body more and connection with my knowing, is when I wake up in the morning. Now I'm neurodivergent, and my 6-year-old is neurodivergent. It's a large struggle, to say the least. And he only sleeps about 4 hours a night. So one morning I was like, how would I like to be cared for today? And then I set my day up literally to like do things for myself. And so now I ask myself every morning, like, how do I care for myself? Like, what do I need? What do I need to ask for? And I have kind of that like intention through the day that caring of myself is so important that it's like a major intention of my entire day. And so whether I am, speaking with you after this, I'm going to say, okay, so like, am I like where I need to go be in the garden and ground for a while? Or am I like, okay, so I'm going to go take my 6-year-old and lay down for like 15 minutes and, let him wiggle all over me. But nonetheless, like, that, or, I think this is a huge thing for mamas too. Sometimes like I have a older 6 kiddo, but I was thinking about like when I have my 6-year-old is sick, there's times where I have to say like, okay, so I really need a glass of water, which is a thing sometimes as a mama. And I'm like, I can't physically do that. Nobody's in the house to help me. Okay, so telling myself I will honor that as soon as I can, at least in some respect, even if it's a big thing, because man, when my 6-year-old, he's really difficult when he gets sick. And so with all his sensitivities and things, it's even more so. But like having that perspective of care, and I've noticed that like my womb space, my whole sacral space, and I'm a Manny Gen sacral authority. And so I've noticed that like I feel so much more in my feminine, like that trust and surrender and receivership. I feel so different when my intention is to care for myself. And even if it can't be at the moment, even telling myself that, okay, so like it could be 2 hours, but like we're eventually going to get up and make sure our legs are, not asleep and like get a glass of water and pee and all the things. It changes, how we move. And then it also changes like how the world responds to us. Because my older boys are so fascinating because they respond super fast. They don't have a lot of conditioning around, women and men. My husband has some, being raised as a 7th generation rancher. So he's a little slower on the uptake. But my older boys are like so in their true masculine. It's so fun to watch because I'll be like, today I want to make sure that somebody is by my side, like wherever we go. And literally one of them, wherever, like we just went to see a movie on the 4th of July. And that was one of those days I was feeling kind of unsafe where we were. And literally like one of them stopped as we were leaving the theater and like made sure they had eye contact with me and like would walk by me. And they just like shift, into being support. And I really think that's how we're supposed to function between men and women, whether it's our brothers that we don't know or our own, adult children or our partners or whatever. So yeah, I just wanted to share that because that care practice is like a huge, and it totally busts through the whole hypermasculine thing because you cannot be hypermasculine in your hypermasculine and care for yourself. There's no, like, they're not copacetic.
And it is such a, I want to say it's a simple practice, but it can take time to get to that space when, we're going through massive amounts of healing and sometimes, like, getting into our bodies and things like that, like feeling safe enough to come back home to ourselves. But the more we practice just that simple thing is, how can I tend to myself today? Even if I can't do it in this moment, can I do that and give that to myself later is really, really powerful. And so anybody that's watching this, just set those little intentions and really, try to connect with yourself and create that space. And the more you do it, I feel like the more we just open up. And like you said, the more things start to flow to us. And that's the part of being feminine, right? Is that magnetism as well, and attracting what is ours, what is meant for us, and understanding what is not will go. So I think that's a really,
and the power in it.
Yeah.
And the power. I just had somebody the other day tell me that surrender like was weakness and trust was weakness. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I think I'm more in my power than ever when I am like fully surrendered. I don't feel that that's at all, where we're going. But I do think that that's what a lot of people think. I think that they think that they're like letting go and going to be like washed away by some weird stream of shit they don't want to happen to them when, true surrender is like, we went paddleboarding this morning and I said, oh, I'm so tired today. I'm like, Mother, Father, God, I would so love to have a parking spot that I did not have to walk very far. And I was like, it's okay if I don't. It's okay, but that would be really, really fun. And literally we pulled up and there was no parking spots. And I'm like, okay, totally like that's what's happening. I looked up to where we were going to have to park, and a person pulled out in front of me. There's like 10 parking spots at our itty bitty lake that we go to, that up front. And so I was like, that is surrender. And then like the gratitude is so natural that comes with that. And that's also really feminine. Like that whole piece of like having gratitude just like exude from us is also super feminine. I think we get away from that with all of our, I'm going to write 500 gratitude things today and like have a gratitude practice. It's beautiful, if it's done in a certain way with a certain intention to me. But I think a lot of times it becomes a mental game, where it's like expression, where it doesn't actually express from us. It's not that true, natural kind of flow.
And I love that you're bringing up the surrender, because I think a lot of people, like society and even religious dogma, that word can trigger things within people, like surrendering them, like it's like a sacrifice or something. But really,
Submission.
And really when we're surrendering, I feel like what we're doing is we're saying we're letting go of attachments. We're letting go of attachments to things that, maybe we clung onto for so long. And it's like allowing ourselves to just let go of the attachments. What is, we empty ourselves when we surrender. And that's like what you said earlier. That's when we are the source light. That is when our divinity activates even more. And then we're moving out into the world with that divine spark. And so it's kind of that process, right? We have to learn to surrender. We have to open that space, clear ourselves out, so then the divine can speak through us. So the divine can experience life through us. And then also, so, we are that divine. So we are experiencing life through us instead of through some mental chatter or, weird constructs. We're really creating this path. And I think, like you said, with the gratitude, like, I set the intention to write gratitude every morning, but it's just not my thing. I got little kids. I have a dog that always needs to go out. There's always something that's happening in the mornings. But when I'm in nature or when I'm doing something, I try to just be grateful, and I try to exude that from my heart. And even if it's just driving down the road or getting a parking spot or asking for something and it happens, just be like, thank you, and having also, like you said, having fun, like, oh, that would be fun. Not like, I need this parking spot right now. I need this right now. It's like, oh, that would be fun. And when you have that kind of perspective shift, then you're opening up and you're releasing those attachments, and you're like, it'd be fun. And then it happens for you and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm a manifester. Like
I don't actually like even feel that way. I'm just like, so like, I feel like more in flow. And I taught manifestation for almost 20 years. And for me, like, that's so evolved into like being in that sourced energy. Like, it feels like I'm just receiving from a source. Like, I'm in that flow, and that feels good to me. I've never experienced, like I was saying about Kauai, the amount of energy coming to me from the plants, from the land, from the elders and ancestors of the land, from the ocean, all of the things. Like, it just felt, I'd never been in a space where there was like kind of an equal, like, giving to receiving ratio, like I usually am. Then there, it just felt like this grandmother energy that I think we all should lean into, that was like, sit down and just receive, whether it was the rain or the palm trees. And it's so easy to, like you said, being in nature, express that gratitude for the beautiful flower and recognizing beauty as something to be grateful for. Like, the things that like patriarchy say are not, of value necessarily. Or it's not like an art sculpture or something like that, where patriarchy is like, yes, that's valued. But for me being there, and my kids expressed it to me too, how they felt like it was so different because everything is just giving to you. The waters are flowing. The land is just lush and like holds you wherever you are. And so that gratitude was so interesting to watch, like in my kids, even my little one, how they felt like so grateful for everything we did, no matter what it was, whether the waves were too big to go in the ocean, which they were one day. In February, the waves were really, really big. My kids are like, can we surf that? And I'm like, I don't think so. You've never surfed before. This is going to work out bad. And the lifeguards are like, yeah, you're not going in that water. But I mean, like and then, watching them step back and go, yeah, but look at the power of those waves. Like, feel the energy coming off. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, where it wasn't like I see people do this all the time, like at our hot springs. They're like, oh, that's too hot, or oh, that's too cold, because we have lots of different pools at our hot spring. And I'm always like, this is water that came out of the fucking earth, that is warmed by the earth. Like, how can you not go sit in, like, just find a different pool? Like, just shift, like, it doesn't even like occur to me to, be in that space. And so that's where gratitude goes for me, is that, like, being able to, like, find, like, the awareness of the things that bring us joy, that bring us beauty, that bring us the energy.
So beautiful. So if you had a message for humanity at this time, what would it be?
To find a way to activate your heart and your inner knowing, so that you can truly come home to yourself and who you are on a soul level, and feel that you can be of service in the world. I think it's a huge, huge issue right now, because when you're not of service, you're not in the reciprocity cycle. And so you're not receiving. And we all have something to give, whether it's stories that are lived, whether it's stories of remembering, whether it's going first as a leader, or figuring out how to homeschool our kids, or deal with nervous system disorders like we do. Like, it's all of service to the collective, whether it is valued or not. But to step forward and just start doing it, and find something that will activate that within you, whether it's a course, a person, an Instagram, being in a collaborative book, there's so millions of ways to do this. Of course, it's like expression, like there's no right way, but to find somebody, something, some experience that will activate this for you, so that you can start moving with this inner knowing, with your heart, with your womb, and that beautiful connection. Because life looks so differently when you come from this place, being rooted in your body and being in your own knowing.
That's such a powerful message right there. And yes, I agree. I agree with you. That's so amazing. So I know you kind of talked about this collaboration that you're going to be doing with the Waters. What else are you working on right now? And how can people connect with you, find you?
Yeah. So I have Coming Home coming up soon, which is really a deep Lemurian leadership immersion. And then I also have a really fun thing. I do these activations. That's why I have activation portals. All of my things are called that, because that's literally my gift. Is I'm doing an exposed portal. I did uncensored. And now I'm doing exposed for deeper leadership, the energetics of why we don't express, and finding those places in us, those blocks, those things that prevent us from expressing ourselves authentically. And if you look at anybody's Instagram story, you can tell immediately if they are in flow or if they're like struggling to put something up. So that's why I'm doing this, because I think that's what as leaders, we have to be expressed. If we're not expressing our medicine, we're just holding it, and that's not what we're here to do. So yeah, I have those two things coming up. And then my Oracle deck is launching in September, which I'm really, really excited about. I have 15 women, 14 women and one man who step forward to co-author it with me. But that's super exciting. And then I'll be launching my Jaguar Council off the back end. So I have lots of ways lots of things coming up. But the easiest way to find me is just Instagram, or to jump in. I have a Creatrix Coven where I teach how to get ready to become an author, because there are a lot of women out there that need a little bit of time, generally in my or somebody else's energy, to work up the courage to jump in. So I have a Creatrix Coven where like I help teach that, and we work on expression and things.
I love that so much. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining this summit, and congratulations on all of your achievements with your books, and the newest one that I think just came out on paperback today, which I know it'll be a couple weeks before, like when this airs, but just congratulations on all of the work that you're doing, and for stepping forward and helping so many people, including myself, like really share our message. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Athena.
Yes. Yes. And so make sure you guys check out all of her information. All of Shannon's information will be down below. So make sure to check out her stuff, and you can find her on Instagram as well as Facebook. And her website will be down below too. So thank you guys.